Redskins in the Pro Title playoff. A game that saw the Bears score at nil against a team that beat them only a few weeks earlier. A game in which even Redskin plays resulted in their touchdowns. All to the outstanding score of 73-0.
Adding machine football scoring as the Chicago Bears do battle for the world's professional football championship. The cameras record a devastating Chicago offensive that rolls over the Washington Redskins right from the opening seconds. On the second play of the game, Bill Osmanski drives away for the Bears. Watch now as Chicago's George Wilson takes out not one, but two Redskins. And Osmanski completes a 68-yard touchdown.
And today on the Sports Scrapbook, we're talking with Dr. Bill Osmanski, former Chicago Bear football great, and he has an interesting story to tell about the Bears' 1940 championship game. By the way, Bill, what happened in that game?
Well, I'd like to recall the fact that we won 5 world championships and we won 4. The greatest one, I think, was in 1940. We played the Washington Redskins. We had played them 3 weeks prior to that, and it was a play where they had 8 seconds left, first down, where Luckman faked McAfee and Olding into the line, and I ran to the left, blocked their right end, went out the flat, and he threw me a pass. Well, as I was about to grab the pass, someone grabbed my hand, someone hit me from behind, the ball bounced off of my chest, I complained bitterly, and what Mr. Hallis had to say I couldn't tell you. But anyway, the game ended and we lost 7-3, didn't score a touchdown. We came back 3 weeks later, played the same team, they had the same defense. And the first play, we found out that the defense was similar, which was 7-4. It was. The second play, I was supposed to go off tackle, but instead of the ends boxing, they crashed. The next thing I knew, I had to go around the end and went for a touchdown, about 70 yards. And then Jack Manders kicked off for us, and Moose Krause, Max Krause, not Moose, had the ball going for a touchdown. I caught him from behind about a 32-yard line. They tried 2 running plays. The third play, they threw a pass to Charlie Maloney, dropped on the 2-yard line. And Masterson, Sullivan Masterson, the Redskins, he had a Masterson, the Bears too, he missed a 32-yard field goal.
Well, George, that 73-0 Bears rout of the Washington Redskins back in 1940 certainly is one of the most talked about sports events in history. What do you recollect about the psychological buildup for that game? And what happened once it got underway?
Psychological buildup for that game, Jack, was very simple. In fact, it was non-existent, because 3 weeks before that 73-0 game, the Washington Redskins defeated us 7-3 on a questionable last play of the game when Sid Luckman threw a perfect pass to Bill Osmanski in the end zone. And that would have won the game for us. But the defensive halfback threw both his arms around Bill Osmanski's arms, and the ball hit him in the chest, and the umpire, the referee, did not call a penalty. Naturally, we screamed about this lack of officiating, but you couldn't do anything about it because that was the last play of the game. The official blew the whistle and ran like the deuce for the dugout with me after him, but I never caught him. But I did scream to the to the sports writers and show them the play of the game. And as a result of that game, why, George, my good friend George Marshall, called us crybabies and a first half team. naturally, in the build-up for that particular game, it was naturally all the players were furious, knowing or we got cheated out of the game, and it was just a matter of keeping them down, Jack, more than trying to get them zeked up for the game.
Well, sometimes a team can be too high.
That is right, and that was my biggest problem. And I tried to play that down, and the pep talk before that game was of no consequence. All we had to do is repeat the fact that George Marshall called us crybabies, and they didn't even need that because they went out on the field really psyched up. And when at the and between halves, all I said was, remember, fellas, Marshall called us a first half team only, and that took care of everything. So that was you can see, so it was an easy job on the part of the coaching staff to get the team psyched up for that game.
The home crowd's further dismayed as more Chicago Thunder is quickly uncorked. Joe Magnacci carries. This time a block fails, but Magnacci is going over anyway, and it's another Chicago touchdown. As for the Chicago defense, well, they hold the Redskin total rushing gains to nearly 0, and no wonder. Silence among the local fans. Silence on the Redskin bench, and this is not yet the end.
Sid, it's really great to have you here today. And we're going to talk about the Bears a little bit, and certainly you've been around a long time with the players, current, past, and I just wondered, in your years of viewing the Bear organization, what the differences are between the time you were playing and today's players.
Well, I don't think there's that much of a difference in actually the actual players. I think the boys today are bigger, they're stronger, they're faster, they're better athletes than when we played. That's an obvious conclusion everybody realizes.
Sid, when you were playing, were the players closer to management? Were you closer to George Halas than we are to our present management?
Well, I think that's a very peculiar question, because I was very, very close to George Halas, but I was with him for many, many years. I guess for close to 34 years. I'm not saying that to him, I'm saying that humbly as a player and coach. And we had a very, very unique and wonderful relationship. But I think that the game has had a tremendous change. It's really, players today have their own unions, the players have their own different systems that they work with. And of course, when we played, Gary and Roger, it was more of a, when we only had 30 players, you played both ways. And I think Coach Halas was very close to most of the players.
You think that made it better?
I don't think it really makes that much difference. I think if a team has a spirit and they have a great leadership, it truly doesn't make any difference if you're close to the management or not. As long as the players themselves have the closeness, and between the coach and the players, the management is there to do what they have to do to keep everybody satisfied.
Sid, one thing I hear all the time is how great Wrigley Field was compared to Soldiers Field. You've been at both. What is the difference?
Well, Wrigley Field was a little different in that game. You just right almost on the field. Soldiers Field, you're talking about playing, you're talking about as a spectator?
Playing.
Well, the field
and
was
both.
Well, the field was really in beautiful condition. They kept it. It was all beautiful, brand new turf they got every year. It wasn't any artificial turf. Of course, in the wintertime when the snow hit, it was pretty rough and froze up many times. I'm sure it does with you folks also. But for the spectator point of view, it was probably the most beautiful park to watch a game, because the field was built right around the stadium itself was built right around the playing field, so no matter where you sat, you had a good seat.
But that west end zone, I remember, the corner was cut off. There wasn't quite enough room for a full end zone.
Right.
Did you exploit that in any way when you were quarterback?
No, we didn't exploit that at all. We were just, that was one of the things that they had to do, because the people couldn't see from that point because of the fact that they put up the temporary stands.
How about the best player you ever played with the Bears?
Well, that's a very difficult question to answer, because I don't think there's a best in anything. I think no matter how great you may think you are, there's always someone coming along better than you are or more. And each decade and each generation has their supposed greats. There were so many on our team. Actually, Gary, to pick out one would be very difficult. We have 19 men on our team who are in the Hall of Fame today. So to mention any one particular guy would be sort of a reflection on the others, but I was just proud to be a member of that organization.
quarter, Sid Luckman takes over. Chicago's great field general touchdown passes 30 yards to Ken Cavanaugh.
The 1940 NFL championship game remains among Chicago's greatest moments, when, against the Redskins, Sid Luckman ran George Halas's T-formation offense to perfection.
Sid Luckman, as a quarterback, was the man who precipitated the T-formation. He's the man that made it work. 73-0, the largest margin of victory in the history of the National Football League. And it was a great victory for them, and the town sure did celebrate.
The T-formation and the man in motion was the Chicago Bears. That's what set them apart. They didn't play the old-style single-wing offense. They opened the game up.
Halas used the T formation in the 1940 title game against Preston Marshall's Washington Redskins, beating them so convincingly that not a coach in America could ignore the strategy.
When they beat the Washington Redskins 73-0, every team in football, pro, college, and high school, all went to the T formation.
The second quarter also sees a Washington threat with Sammy Bowe passing in sensational fashion to Charlie Malone, and the Washington Rooters hope for the best. But quickly comes dismay. Bowe passing again as the half ends, and an interception by Osmanski.
George Halas really was the man who started the T formation and stayed with it when everyone else was using the signaling and the docking system. He's the man that has to be given 100% of the credit for the T formation. All the teams in the league are really using the T. I've always thought that it was a name that should have been called the Halas formation rather than the T formation.
70 years ago, on December 8, 1940, the Washington Redskins hosted the Chicago Bears in the NFL Championship game. For the first time, a NFL Championship game was being broadcast nationally to 120 radio stations across the country. It was a rematch of a game won by the Redskins 7-3 3 weeks earlier. Perhaps the fans on hand at Griffith Stadium were looking forward to a defensive battle between the league's top two teams. But just 3 plays into the game, there was a sense that this might not be a low-scoring affair. Bears coach George Halas implemented the T formation in place of the normal single-wing offense being used in the NFL at that time. His quarterback, Hall of Famer Sid Luckman, ran the T to perfection. The result? The most lopsided game in NFL history. Chicago had a 28-0 lead by halftime and continued to pour it on throughout the second half as they added 26 points in the third quarter and 19 in the fourth to defeat the Redskins 73-0. The Monsters of the Midway weren't just about offense, as the Bears defense recorded a playoff record 8 interceptions. 3 of those picks were returned for TDs. The scoring onslaught was so great that there were no more game balls to be used. The Bears had kicked them all into the stands on extra points throughout the afternoon. In fact, Washington pleaded with the Bears not to attempt point-afters on their last 2 TDs. The game was finished using practice balls.
Punishment, nosing off with the big spin, and our cameraman fast losing count at the Chicago touchdown.
Involved in perhaps the most noteworthy game in football, the Redskins championship game. Give us a little bit about that.
That was in 1940, and I was a rookie that year. And 3 weeks before that, we met him in just a regular scheduled game, and they beat us 7-3. and after the end of the season, all that, the
Now, the Redskins at the time had Sammy Baugh, right?
Sammy Baugh, yes, and they had a great team. So anyhow, we met them 3 weeks later in the championship game, and it just seemed like everything went good for us. Anyhow, we kicked off to them, they got the ball and all that, and they got down to about the 25-yard line, and Sammy Baugh hit this end, Malone, in the end zone, right in his hands, the ball, and he drops it, you know. So anyhow, they didn't score. We stopped them, and a lot of times Sammy Baugh has been asked, Sammy, if that Malone had kept that ball instead of fumbling, he said, what do you think the score would have been? He said, 73-6.
Before the game, did George talk to you about it? Did George get you
Oh yeah,
fired up?
He was like Hunk Anderson, you know, he was an old Notre Dame.
Yeah.
He coached Notre Dame. He was from Notre Dame, and he and the House had just got us ready to, we could almost fly without wings, you know. But they've really worked you up. Things got going. We were intercepting passes and just couldn't do anything wrong. And I think at halftime we were about 28-0 at halftime. Then the rest of it just kept piling up in the second half. And finally at the last quarter, the beginning of the last quarter, the referee came over and says, from now on, if you score, you either run it over or pass it over. This is the last football we have, you know, because you'd kick it and you'd never get it back. You know how that is. I made the last touchdown. Bob Snyder, you have his name on that list. Yeah. He said, who hasn't scored yet? I said, I haven't. And I'd already scored, you know. He brings this up all the time. So after the game was over and all, he said, how come you said that here? He said, you scored. I said, well, people remember me now because I scored more than one time. I was the only one that scored twice.